Digweed, Gachtina, Fáilte, is Misha Connor, Usáidm Siad Shay. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Connor. I use they, he pronouns, and I'm on the committee for Galway Community Pride this year. And I'm delighted to welcome you all to our event this evening, which we're hosting in collaboration with Sporting Pride and Dublin LGBTQ Pride. So I'm delighted to have my panellists here this evening to talk about being out and active. So we've got a couple of varied discussion topics, and I might get each panelist to give a quick introduction on themselves, and then I can speak more about myself, and then we'll kind of go through just a bit of chat about being outdoors and being active and our experiences as LGBTQ folk. So I might come to you first, Megan, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Megan. I use she, her pronouns. I used to be involved with Galway Pride. I lived in Galway for a good few years. I never know how much to say when I'm the first in introduction, sorry. But I live in Dublin now. So thanks for having me back.
Awesome. Yeah, we're delighted to see you and have you involved again. And I'll come to you next, Jude, please.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Jude. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. I am on the board of Amach LGBT Galway. I've lived in Galway for about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about swimming today.
Awesome. And Alexis.
Hi, so my name is Alexis. My pronouns are she, her. I've lived in Galway for about 12 years now. I grew up in Mayo, and I'm going to be talking about cycling and camping.
Awesome, nice. It sounds like we've all got very different kind of backgrounds and interests, so hopefully we'll have a nice, interesting discussion this evening. I'm living in Galway probably about 10 years as well, so I've been here for quite a while. I moved down from Athlone for college, and I just did the usual Galway thing of just staying around afterwards. Megan, you seem to you were here for a while after, and then
I wish I was still there.
yeah. You're still connected to the community, which I think is really great about the community in Galway, is how connected it is and kind of how there's so much overlap between all the various activities. I'm involved in the soccer team, Choxolus Tribes, and I was also involved in the running group, which was also run through Choxolus, which is the resource centre that Amach LGBT had in Galway for a while. So I might come to you first, Jude, if that's okay, just to talk a little bit maybe about Amach and Amach LGBT and Choxolus and kind of your involvement in that group, and also the folks that you know that do sea swimming in that.
Yeah, for sure. So I joined the board about 1.5 or 2 years ago, shortly before the centre had to close. My work on Amach is mostly centred around coordinating Saturday drop-in, which runs from 2 to 4. And kind of helping out the volunteers with that and stuff. I also do a bit of the social media work for Amach as well. We kind of, during the lockdown, we branched a little bit more into physical activity and stuff. So we had an amazing volunteer, Mark O'Malley, who offered to do a load of classes for us for free over on our Instagram. So he was doing some strength and high intensity interval training classes and stuff. And I think that was a huge support for the community in terms of like keeping us connected and keeping us active. I only started swimming really during, I think it was lockdown 2 or lockdown, I can't really remember now. They're all kind of blended into one. But I was kind of looking for something to do that could get me out of the house, because I was spending a lot of time indoors, and the only thing I was doing apart from that was going to work. So it all got very like boring and monotonous. So I really needed something to get me out of the house and to kind of help with my mental health as well at that time. So yeah, I started very slowly, maybe just going like once a week or something. And from then on, it's kind of turned into a bit of a hobby, but also like an obsession a little bit as well. So yeah, it's been great. And I go with a couple of other trans people that I know in Galway, have a little group, and we go together. And it's nice to like be in that comfortable space where you're not worried about anyone saying anything to you, or like, you know yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm delighted to hear that you've kept it up. I know you had been going quite regularly the last time we spoke, so I'm glad to hear you kind of kept with it. I know I haven't been out for a swim myself in a couple of weeks now. I think the warm weather and the jellyfish have definitely put me off a little bit, but hopefully when they all swim away, I'll get back down to it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jude. Megan, I know you probably have experience of being involved with, say, an inclusive team and also an inclusive environment where you can do sports and activity together. Would you mind sharing a little bit about the badminton team you're involved with in Dublin, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I didn't say my sport at the start. So, yeah, I play badminton, and I suppose I had played for years, but when I moved to Dublin, I was looking for things to get involved with because I didn't really know a lot of people, and I saw that there was an LGBT plus badminton club, and I was like, oh my god, two of my favorite things. So I think it was like my first week in Dublin. I just was like, I'm going, like nothing's going to stop me, and yeah, so it's called Flaming Feathers LGBT plus badminton club. Yeah, it's really cool. It was started by a guy called Danny, and he's still chair, so he's going strong. And yeah, it was just like, it was a really lovely space. Like everyone was so friendly. Like I've been able to bring my partner along to it as well. Like it's just like it's very relaxed, but we also compete, so that's really like interesting. And we would go to international tournaments and stuff as well. Well, all this is in the past, but yeah, there was loads of opportunities to go to tournaments and stuff. So and it was a twice a week thing, so I found it was really great, like stress reliever, and just a lovely way to get to know new people in the city. So it's probably been like one of the best things I've done. I think like if you can tie your social activities into sport as well, it's really nice because you're getting to be active and you're kind of, you're out and about and you're meeting people as well. So yeah, couldn't speak highly enough of it. I wish there had been something like that in Galway. If I was there, I'd probably try and start something like it now, because it's really nice to have LGBT plus inclusive spaces where when you're going along immediately, you're part of a community. So
yeah, definitely. Well, I think I know at least a couple of people in Galway who are interested in badminton. So there might be an interest in it there. Can keep you posted on it if you wanted to start out. I don't know if you come up with a name as good as Flaming Feathers. But,
I know, it's so good.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, Alexis, I might chat to you then about the different groups you're involved in, because I know, as Megan said, it's good to have kind of scheduled times or scheduled groups and activities. And I know you have been involved with the Galway cycling campaign and one of the other cycling groups for quite a number of years.
So there's two cycling groups I'm involved with in Galway. The Galway Cycling Campaign's goal is generally to make the city more accessible to cyclists and to make it less of a death trap against cars. And then the Galway Urban Greenway Alliance, their goal is to get a greenway from Moycullen in through, say, the north side of the city that goes along the river, goes all the way along to south to Salt Hill and then out towards Barna. And they have a meeting once a month, or at least they did pre-COVID times, where they would have a cycle along a portion of where they want the greenway to be. So it would be like a physical representation of the amount of people that are interested in this. It's like I think it's Sandy Mount in Dunleary, that they want something very similar to what's happened there. And yeah, other stuff I'm involved in is I've also been involved with Amok LGBT for a year. Well, not directly, but in a group that's underneath them, under the umbrella of all the different groups that they do.
Yeah, they've got quite a lot of variety of stuff going on, which I'm very thankful for, because I've definitely benefited from a lot of it while I've lived in Galway. So I think just being able to get involved in different things and kind of meet different people. And I know as well, Jude, you mentioned earlier the online Instagram classes that Choxolis and Mark were doing. I found them very helpful because it kind of gave me a structure and routine throughout that like winter lockdown when I wasn't really sure what day it was or what time of the year it was, or even like if I was still in what physical space I was living in. Sometimes it was nice to just be able to check in with that group and have a little bit of a chat as we were doing the exercise classes and stuff. Because I think sometimes there can definitely be obstacles or challenges as LGBT plus folks for getting involved in sports or activity. And I don't know if anybody wanted to share, maybe would like to share some of their experience on that. I don't want to call on anybody again, but...
I can go first if you like.
Thanks,
so I wouldn't have like previously I wouldn't have been a very sporty or active person. Like going, even before I was out, going to a gym kind of terrified me. Didn't like PE in school, any of that stuff. But it wasn't really until like the first sporting activity I ever started doing was roller derby, when there was a roller derby team here in Galway. I'm not sure if they're still around. They obviously haven't been able to train as much because of COVID, but it was amazing to be. It wasn't like a specifically an LGBTQ plus team, but there was just a lot of LGBTQ plus people on it, because I guess it just attracted us.
Yeah.
It was great, yeah. And that experience of kind of being able to just train with other queer people specifically changed my whole mindset about sports and stuff. So I think that was a huge turning point for me anyway, and that's why I've been so eager to get like more and more trans people and queer people in Galway to swim together, just because I'm like, you love it once you feel safe and comfortable with the group who accept you, you know.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, I think. And I think it is the thing of once you've tried it once or twice, maybe with the right temperature for sea swimming, you kind of get hooked in a sense. You kind of want to be nearly going every day, because it's something I had done on and off for the last couple of years in Galway. And it is that thing of, I think, finding the group that you're comfortable with, because I have one or two friends that I'd be very comfortable going down to Blackrock with, or Ladies Beach, and kind of leaving our stuff together and kind of going out for the dip together. But I don't think I'd be able to do that with like a new group or an unknown group of people. So it's really great that that's still active, and I hope you keep it up over the winter, or coming into the autumn winter time maybe.
I will, for sure. I'm not sure how many other people will be willing to come with me in the winter, but like, get a wetsuit, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Solves all the problems.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Megan, I might come to you next on the badminton. I don't know if it's, I'm just thinking of a point that you'd made about maybe the roller derby as being a more alternative sport, maybe being more welcoming towards LGBT plus folk, as opposed to the more mainstream sports like soccer and GAA. I don't know if you've had that similar experience with badminton, or if you've played other sports.
Yeah, I would, because I would have played like through school and stuff, you know, and doing the Gashka Awards, I would have tried to kind of take up new sports, but badminton was kind of the one that stuck. And I wouldn't have necessarily, like, it kind of seemed to attract all kinds of people when I played in university as well. But I think it was just, so it wasn't specifically like it was a place where I knew there were a lot of LGBT plus people, but it was then when I found Flaming Feathers and I was like, oh my God, this can, you know, that this thing exists, and that like there is a lot of fear for a lot of people, I think, or that like that lingering fear of potential homophobia or transphobia, or maybe perhaps having bad experiences with sports teams before. Like I was very lucky, like I didn't really have any particularly bad experiences. I mean, I played years ago, I played tag rugby when I was working in a place that was very it was like extremely misogynistic, and that transferred onto the pitch, and like that kind of stuff is just hot. Like it's not the kind of environment you're going to come out in, you know what I mean? Because me being a woman was enough for all the sexism to happen. So so like stuff like that, I think there are particular sports that I think they're, you know, where there's certain levels of competition, and there's a lot of I can understand why those kind of environments would be very daunting, but by and large, I mean, badminton was good. But I will say, like, when we go around and compete in the league, I think a lot of people are really confused about like what we are, like our team. Do you know what I mean? Which is why, so we're going to get all like rainbow gear and everything. So it's like really obvious. Because a lot of the people we playing against sometimes be a lot older, and that's not to generalize. Like, it's just that, like, I think they might not understand that we're an LGBT plus team, and I think it's really great that we are. And we should kind of be talking about it as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, kind of make it as visible as possible with like the training gear, and kind of have pride in it and show pride in it.
Yeah,
and
just to normalize it as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Alexis, I might ask you a little bit more about camping, because I know you mentioned that as one of your other activities. Do you think there could be ventures or ideas to maybe get more LGBT plus folk involved in camping, or kind of what needs to be done to help spread the idea or the joy of camping in the outdoors and nature?
Majority of what I can think of is like in the world at large, just kind of sorting out on campsites, changing facilities and bathrooms, and just making those more inclusive. I mean, most campsites I've been to haven't even had a bathroom for a disabled person who might be in a wheelchair. And it's just, it needs to be more open to different people. I say the most fun I've ever had camping was when I went camping with other LGBT people, because it was a case of like, no one felt that they had to explain anything or hide anything. And during that particular time, we ended up like being a bit brave and putting different flags on the sides of the tents. And we had like, I think it was about 8 different tents in a circle. And it was just, that's where the gays are right now. And yeah, no, that was a very fun experience. And that was, I think, like a week-long trip where we all just hung out. And yeah, as for what I think people can do to make it more accessible for LGBT people, it all really depends on who you go with.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, when growing up, my parents weren't the most well off, so we didn't really go on holidays. My dad chose instead to invest in camping gear, and we went each year that way. And just like camping with my family versus camping with LGBT adults, as an adult, very different. But the skills I learned as a kid to put up a tent and all that stuff was just great.
Awesome, yeah.
I feel like food cooked over an open fire just tastes different as well.
Yeah. I think there's the element of maybe the camp smoke or the campfire smoke to it. Maybe. Yeah.
Or even just the smell of the wood that you used from the forest to burn it as well.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. It's all about, I think, being outdoors and being connected to nature, and especially with COVID and the restrictions, I think there was so little that we could do, in a sense, that wasn't connecting with people online, which I'm very grateful that I was able to do in different ways, and would like keep up those connections with various groups. But there is also a lot to be said for getting away and switching off and kind of being outdoors and kind of being present in nature as much of a summer we've had in Galway so far, to try and make the most of it.
Yeah, like I'm involved in helping run a peer-led support group here in Galway, and myself and the 2 other moderators earlier in the year were talking about seeing if we could get a group of us to go down to Cool Park just for the day, to go on different trails and just kind of walk through and just get away from the city for a little bit, but also to be within a group of friends in a situation where we could still socially distance and have an outdoor picnic and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I know you're one of the facilitators of Gossip, I think, which is the group. Yeah, so you probably are aware of maybe some of the challenges that are faced by trans and non-binary folk, just even outside of sports, just kind of in a wider sense in Ireland. So
yeah,
so I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of difficult times during COVID, but thanks for the work you do in
thank you.
running that support and yeah, it's been announced as well. So I just want to congratulate you and the other facilitators on winning one of the Galway Community Pride Awards, because I know you won the Community Group of the Year award this year.
Oh yes, thank you so much for that. Me being a facilitator for Gossip is how do I put this in the correct way? It's not something I asked for. It was a case of where the previous person who was running it had to leave the country didn't have to leave the country, left the country to pursue personal goals. And if I didn't take over the group at that point in time, it was ages ago, it was like 2014, the group would have been dead. And I was like, okay, it's one of those situations where either do it or it's gone. So did it, and now we're doing pretty well. Yeah, it's awesome. The group seems to be growing every couple of months, so it's a really nice space to be involved in, especially because I think trans and non-binary folk definitely face a lot of like tough challenges in Ireland and worldwide at the moment. And I know the recent Olympics that just finished up, say a couple of days ago, there was a couple of like really high-profile trans and non-binary athletes who actually did really well. I think Quinn was possibly one of the first to win a gold medal, and they're a Canadian soccer player, and they were on the team against Sweden in the final. But I know there was also a couple of other really cool athletes, and then there was our own Kelly Harrington,
who did phenomenally well to win the gold medal. So I suppose I just wanted to ask you folks what you thought of that. What was it like to see someone, a high-profile LGBT plus person, excelling at their sport and just being fully themselves? So Jude, I'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing. But I also, like, in the back of my mind, I feel a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of worry for them as well, just because being queer and particularly being trans in a sport, even if it's not particularly high profile, there's a lot of heat on you and there's a lot of pressure to be great and be the best and really excel, because you're an example for everybody else, for the whole community, when sometimes all you want to do is just do your sport and have a good time. You know what I mean? So I do, like, I think there's an awful lot of pressure on them, but I'm really like, every time I see a queer person doing well in a sport, not even the Olympics, but anything, like, it makes me feel really proud. It's great.
Yeah, and I know we have some of your good friends involved with the soccer team. I know a couple of your good friends have started to play with the Chapsulas Tribe soccer team as well. So hopefully when we're able to get our numbers up and kind of play a couple of games, we'll be able to highlight that a bit more for the groups in Galway. Megan, I might come to you and ask about the Olympics and just, I suppose, wider LGBT plus representation in sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people talked a lot about it this Olympics, which was really nice. I think Jude makes a good point. Like, it's a lot of pressure to put on someone's shoulders. And I also think about the fact that these athletes they're competing in aggressively gendered competitions, and how that must be for them. And when a lot of being in the communities is about challenging that, with even unintentionally, about these gender norms that we have. But it's hard not to feel really proud as well when you see it being mentioned that someone has a partner, and it's not a big deal, I think, news wise, but I think it matters so much to the community to see more of that representation. And I mean, not to put a negative note on it, but I did see some of the I didn't see the coverage, but I read about the Russian coverage of Tom Daley. Yeah, and it was really negative, the kind of stuff that they said on air. And I think it's just it obviously is a reminder as well to people that that some of these countries, people are facing a lot of prejudice. There's, you know what I mean, there's a lot of fear there. So it's just worth remembering that the fight goes on. Sorry, I made it all negative there, but no, I just generally love seeing LGBT plus people get to the top of their sport. I think it's incredible, and it really matters for us as well.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I might come back to some of that last point at the end in the next section, because it is an important thing to bring in, I think, for Pride. But Alexis, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add in about seeing folks represented.
I personally haven't really been watching the Olympics closely. I've just been seeing different headlines on different social medias here and there. One thing I thought really impressive from Kelly was that I believe she was the one that suggested to the Irish team to do the bow at the walk-in of the different teams. And they were the only country to do that. And that was picked up as being so respectful and... I think it's just being respectful to the hosts that is what they do in Japan. And it was, and meanwhile, I don't mean to be negative about the Olympics, but there's also the stories about the runners that are being tested for their testosterone levels, because they're like, oh, that person might be secretly trans and having an unfair advantage in the women's category. I'm like, ooh, no. And you're only saying this about the women of color. And it's like, so I think that needs to be sorted out a little bit. So.
Yeah, I definitely seen some of that. I heard them mention it on some of the Irish news stations, the coverage. They were talking about some of the long distance runs that they had. Whatever the testosterone level was, if you were above that, you weren't allowed to compete in that particular race, which, I think it is. It's a very, it seems like it's a very strange rule that they have in, and I know in the States at the moment as well, there's a lot of anti-trans laws coming in across different states in the US in terms of participation in sport, particularly in young trans girls or trans women participating in sport and not being allowed to play the sport of their choice because they're seen as. It's just there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done, and kind of there's a lot of good activists out there working on it. There's a lot of different groups kind of pushing and telling these stories. So I think it's important that we continue that. And one of the groups, I know we were just chatting earlier about Dublin LGBTQ Pride and the stuff that they planned. And I know that they're planning an event to speak out against some of the laws in the Hungarian Parliament just brought in. So even within Europe, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I don't know if anybody wants to add in on that.
There was I think a Polish football player that when she was being interviewed for the Olympics was wearing an LGBT related t-shirt, just being like, just as a form of protest, I guess, against her own government. And I found that very brave of the person to do, because I mean, just to be on international TV complaining about your own government whilst also representing them at the same time, it's scary.
Yeah, and it's very brave of them to do and to make that message while it's a moment that they're celebrating something that they worked so hard to achieve, that they thought to use that platform, I suppose, to spread a message.
Yeah, I think like that kind of like international solidarity is really important, because, you know, we like, if the Olympics is meant to be all about countries coming together, like we can't stand by and watch while these things are happening in other countries. And just like purely from a sporting point of view, like all of the awful stuff that you were just talking about, like it must be so off-putting for like any young trans person looking even to enter a sport, you know, that they see how hard they're going to have to fight to even just play. Like it's atrocious.
Yeah. I don't know if you had anything to add on that, Jude.
Yeah, no, I would just agree with what everyone else says, and like be very grateful that there are those LGBT athletes out there who are willing to like fight that fight and go and represent us despite whatever the consequences may be. You know, I think it's incredibly brave.
Yeah. Yeah, I might come back more so specifically to the different topics we were talking about earlier. So I don't know, I might go, Alexis, with you first, if you wanted to share what's your favorite thing about cycling or your favorite thing about camping that we haven't touched on already? Your favorite memory?
The favorite thing about cycling is probably just myself and my girlfriend Shar just getting on our bikes, cycling somewhere, having a picnic, and then just heading home again. We usually like to do it along the canal, and because there's a few nice places around NUIG and the Dangan sports fields and that, and it's just really nice. And it's cycling is nicer when you're in a place without cars. And I don't know, like I've been really I had planned pre-COVID, but it's kind of hard to work around it. We had originally planned to go on a bit of a holiday on the Dungarvan Greenway, where they've got like little camping spots along it, because in the future I hope to do something called bike packing, where you bring all of your camping equipment on the bike and just go. And just that's my dream holiday at the moment, post-pandemic.
Yeah. Have everything prepared. It is the thing of just being prepared and have everything with your bike, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't know, Megan, if you have anything, any sporting memory or highlight.
Yeah, I suppose I just like I love everything about it. Like, you know, it's I don't play singles because I'm definitely not fit enough for it. So like I'm always on the court. It actually is. There's a lot of running in badminton. If anyone's, I think a lot of people think it's just a sport you play in secondary school or like when you're older. It's actually the fastest racket sport in the world. And yeah. So I'm so I always play doubles. So it's really nice because you always have a doubles partner, and then you're against two other people as well. And it's just really nice playing a sport where you know you can improve and there's things to learn, and there's a massive social element to it as well. You know, when if you're not the way we would obviously with our club, because the club is actually Flaming Feathers is quite popular, like really big, and you know we'd have to rotate people off the courts and stuff. So you'd be sitting chatting on the sidelines as well. So you get an equal amount of play and chatting to people, which I think is really lovely because helps you to just build those connections as well. And I don't know, in terms of like just favorite memory, I went to one of the international tournaments literally just before COVID, the first lockdown. So it was like my last happy memory, and it was in Bristol. Bristol with one of their LGBT, I think their only LGBT badminton club ran it, and it was just so cool. Like people coming from all these like different LGBT plus badminton clubs coming from different countries, like and just to play sport that they love and kind of hang out with a community they love as well. It was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I love that about the sport itself, bringing people together, because it is the common element that everybody has an interest in badminton and everybody wants to play and learn new things about it or improve their skill. So it just brings across a huge diverse group of people together.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Jude, I don't know if you want to share more about sea swimming.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the nicest things about it is that, well, we're very lucky in Galway and the community that goes swimming out in Salt Hill, because the changing areas are not gender segregated, and there's already a community of people who swim there together anyway. And Galway's full of characters, so nobody really takes any notice of you. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what it would be like in other areas. Like I would be very reluctant to go into like a leisure centre or a pool indoors and swim there. I think I'd be more comfortable to keep it like outside. But when we started going, it was just myself and my friend Finn Morris. And as a joke, we were like, oh, what if we called ourselves Transatlantic, haha. And then it just kind of became a little bit bigger, and we've inspired Kingdom Pride in Kerry. They had their Pride recently, and they had a little transatlantic swimming event as well on their calendar, and I just thought that was kind of cool. So I'm hoping that we can like influence and inspire more and more people to try sea swimming. Even if you don't like it, just try it, because I'm really passionate about like the huge impact it's had on my mental health and helping me feel comfortable in my body as a trans person as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I don't know the exact survey that it was, but I think there was recently a questionnaire that was put out to maybe all trans and non-binary folk. It was probably just an internet thing I seen. And what would you do for the day if you could just feel fully comfortable and you weren't, I suppose, worried about all of the obstacles that exist in society and everyday life because of like the way society is at the moment? And I think one of the biggest responses that came back from folks was swimming, to go for a swim. Which, like, when you mentioned leisure centres and stuff there, I don't think I've been in a swimming pool in probably about 8 years. Like,
Yeah, me too.
Swimming pool. And I don't think it's something that I would be comfortable doing, just because of all the different, like, the gender segregated bathrooms and changing rooms. Like, when I go for a swim in the sea, I wear my football shorts and usually sometimes a Chalk Solace like t-shirt, or sometimes a Man United jersey, depending how I'm feeling. So, it's just something that's a lot more accessible to me, and it's something I'm a lot more comfortable doing. So yeah, it is. I'm really glad that there's a growing group in Galway, and hopefully it can kind of be something that is looked at maybe more so around the country. And I think as well, in terms of the benefit on mental health, that's something that has probably had a lot of attention over the last 18 months or so, with the COVID pandemic and kind of how all of our lives have changed. So I don't know if anybody wanted to share their experience on that, and kind of what have been the things that have got you through outside of sport. Kind of maybe there's other supports that you've looked for, or kind of other things that you've done to help yourself. So Megan, I might come back to you on that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Hearing about the cycling and sea swimming here, and I'm kind of jealous. Should have picked an outdoor sport, because obviously, like, indoor sports still haven't even come back. So I kind of knew that was kind of scrapped. We got back very briefly in the middle, and like I was dying to get back. Like I'm allowed back inside with work because I do youth work, and the girls one day were like, oh, can we play badminton? I was like, yes, we absolutely can play badminton. No, so I suppose like I just like it was the very generic things for me. It was the walking, and just making sure that I got as much of outdoors as possible. And I suppose that's one thing about badminton, is that you're not outside. Can't really play outside. They haven't developed shuttles yet that don't blow in the wind.
Okay.
So yeah, I think they're working on it. I don't know. I heard, but I'm not 100%. But so just a lot of walking. And then recently I took up tag rugby again. So started with another team, and that was just nice because I love the kind of sports where you don't realize you're exercising. So you're with a team, and then you're like, oh, I'm out of breath because I've been running, as opposed to like actually going on a run by myself or anything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Still doing the walks and hoping we get badminton back soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Is there any word on when games or matches, tournaments will be starting back up? Or
I don't know. I think there's hope that they'll they might let doubles play come back, or even let us train in pods around September time. So that'd be really nice, because I'm kind of getting to the point now where like I'm seeing my partner go back football training a couple of times a week, and I'm like, I just miss everyone, and it'd be really nice. Like we had a massive international community in Flame and Feathers, and there's been a good couple of people now who have posted in the chat saying, they've moved somewhere else, or their life has taken them to somewhere else, and it's like, oh, it's so sad, because it'd just be lovely to be, because genuinely like such an international community, which is really nice as well, to just make people feel welcome. And usually people are new to the city, and it's about that as much as anything else. So yeah, sorry, that was a very long-winded answer, but fingers crossed very soon.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm glad you got to share about the group and like the possibilities for starting back and stuff. That's soon. Hopefully it comes back for you soon. And yeah, we keep in touch on possibly trying to set up maybe a challenge match or a challenge game or something in Galway.
Yeah,
maybe Chapsolis could have also a badminton group, maybe, to add to the list of mock activities.
Yeah, why not?
If I can, sounds great.
Yeah, awesome. I think that was definitely something I noticed myself when I stopped playing. I used to play a lot more soccer. I used to play women's soccer, and I used to train maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And it was something that was in my life for maybe 16, 17 years. And then when I came out as trans, I struggled to feel comfortable in that space playing with a gender team. So I definitely noticed my chances for socializing with people and like seeing my friends were like a lot lower, because I wasn't having that scheduled time at training or that scheduled time at matches. So that's why I'm really grateful for the team we have here, where we just meet up twice a week and we just kick a ball around and have a chat. And as you were saying earlier, Megan, like sometimes you don't even notice when you're running, because you're just kind of doing the little drills and stuff, and I always feel better afterwards. No matter how wet and windy it is, I know if I'll go, I'll feel better afterwards. So I might come to you next, Alexis, kind of just on during COVID and stuff, kind of what ways did you manage the lockdowns and the pandemic?
Does it have to be sporty related, or can it be anything at all?
Anything at all, yeah.
Well, okay, so I'm a massive nerd, and during the pandemic, I ended up playing Dungeons and Dragons with 2 different groups of friends, once a week with each group, and that really helped a lot. One of them, I believe, we were playing in person before everything happened, and then we had to move online. Thankfully, there are some dedicated tools to help with that kind of stuff. But still having, how do I put this? So some people have object permanence, and I have people permanence, that if I don't see a person every so often, I will just forget they exist. And it's not that I hate them or I dislike them or anything like that. It's just, I forget and don't talk to them. So just having a regularly scheduled meetup with a group of friends once a week really helped with my mental health. And aside from that, last July, I started streaming, playing video games over on twitch.tv. And nice. That whole interaction between me, the streamer, and the chat, as we would say, which is just people like they leave comments here on Facebook at the moment, just the talking back and forth, even though it's a bit of a parasocial relationship, it's still just great to talk to people and not just be sitting in a corner and doing something on your own.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Do you want to give a shout out to your Twitch stream at all?
Okay. Both on Twitch and on Twitter, my username is Blaupanzer, which is German for blue armor.
Oh, nice. I hadn't realized that. I think I followed the name before, but I hadn't seen the translation. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's great that there are I suppose so many opportunities online now for folks to stay connected and to do cool events like this, which as part of Galway Community Pride, we were ambitious this year, and we've tried to organise nearly 40 events during this week. So we're on day 2, and we still have a couple more packed up days to go. So yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, we've got a few nice comments. I don't know if we've had any questions yet in the on the page, but we've definitely got a lot of nice comments in from folks. So Dermot has said it's great to see so much activity in the West. Now Galway, you need a front runners club. Yeah, Dermot, I know we must get back to you on that about organising a front runners club. Definitely, maybe do the old couch to 5K activity again. It might be a nice one to get folks into in the springtime, maybe, or maybe coming into winter. And then we've got comments. Hello from the USA. Fair play, guys. Hello, hey to all the gays. Hallelujah. Yeah, if anybody has any questions that they wanted to throw into the Facebook, please do. We'll be here for another 15-20 minutes chatting.
I have a question. What is front runners versus just runners?
That is a very good question. I think Front Runners itself is, I think it's an international group. It's an international running group for LGBTQ plus folks that's set up possibly in San Francisco was the first place, but it's all over the world. And it's kind of just like that, like a social meeting point for people who are interested in running or jogging that want to kind of, if they were moving somewhere, had traveled somewhere and they wanted to meet it, like a group that they knew would be inclusive, they just kind of find the front runners. So there are two, I think Cork or Dublin. I'm not sure which was first, so I'm not going to say which one was first, so I don't mix them up. But they're fairly active. I think they meet a couple of times a week and just do runs and kind of social chat ups and stuff afterwards. Yeah, thanks, Dermot. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else had any other final thoughts to share just about Pride or sports. Or
I was just thinking myself, because we had a little bit of conversation earlier on around like improving spaces, or like how general clubs or sports groups can like improve their space for LGBT plus people. And like we've talked about this a lot in Flaming Feathers, even on the committee, because we realize that like even as an LGBT plus group, we need to work ourselves to make sure that I think you need to actively state, you know what I mean? It's not enough to just allow people to assume that you're very like LGBT plus friendly, but you need to, if possible, like if your club has like a code of conduct or like, I don't know, like, you know, like core ethos or something like that, that it's stated, that it's LGBT plus inclusive, and like how you work towards that. Like we were talking about doing, like making sure we have like pronoun badges and stuff so that everyone knows each other's pronouns, because conversations don't always happen, and that's something we have to work on ourselves. But like just generally other groups, I think, because even we noticed like we were like had a chronic lack of women and trans and non-binary people in the club, you know, and we started another initiative then to try and get people into the club, because we were like, we need to say to people like, yes, we are trans inclusive, we are working to be better, please come along and play badminton. And that's like one of the really nice things about, I think, being in an LGBT plus sports group, is that like badminton can be quite gendered, because you're obviously playing like mixed doubles and stuff. But I haven't found that to be the case at all with Flaming Feathers, because you know, it's just like we're done away with those gender norms. So like the woman doesn't have to play up the front when you're playing doubles, which is usually what would happen if you're playing with a man. Like we just completely, it's like play wherever you want, you know. Anyway, sorry, a bit of a rant there, but I just think like it's nice. Sometimes people are looking to know what they can do to make their group more inclusive. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that's a very good point, that just to openly state it or to share it, because I think a lot of the times folks might look into groups and like might not be fully sure, and they might still be a little bit apprehensive about going along or joining. So I think definitely having that there. And I think just kind of in a broader sense, sport being such a platform for connecting people and bringing people together, it's really important. I think we recognize how it can be made accessible to more groups, even outside of like LGBT plus people. So how do we make it more accessible and inclusive for like the traveller community, or for people in direct provision, or for like people, disabled people, or kind of how do we make all these, the benefits and stuff we've talked about from our own involvement, how do we get more people across wider society involved? And one group I'm just thinking of, who I've also done a bit of running with before, is the Sanctuary Runners in Galway. So they're a running group. Yeah, they're very cool, and they're like lots of fun as well. Anytime I've gone with runs with them, like we've had a really nice time. They run in solidarity with folks in the direct provision centres. So especially during, I think, COVID and the lockdown, they had a very active like online presence where they would like often be posting in the WhatsApp group like a couple of times a day, just encouraging people to, oh, I was just out for a walk, it's quite sunny, or it's like really nice weather, like does anybody fancy going for a coffee, and kind of just keeping people connected. So they've been doing fantastic work, but I think there's definitely a lot of scope for sport itself to be used to kind of bridge gaps across society. So I don't know if Jude or Alexis, if you'd any thoughts on kind of how we can make things more inclusive, or what you've done within your own spaces for that.
I am drawing a blank, so I will defer to Jude for now. Evilly putting you on the spot. But I did it so politely, you can't hate me.
What we mentioned before was like, in terms of swimming, the easiest, quickest, and most effective thing you could do is just get rid of gendered changing areas and gendered bathrooms and any of that, just because this is just for indoor swimming and stuff, obviously, but it would just make it so much easier and so much more comfortable for trans people to be able to swim, and even for cis queer people as well, because the gendered expectations affect everybody. In terms of outdoor swimming, I think, like, it's very easy to say this, but just like, don't be transphobic, don't be homophobic. Like, if you see someone out just playing a sport, having a good time, doing their thing, like, just please God, mind your own business. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Sorry, that's not very eloquent, but
No, it definitely comes across. And just while you're thinking, Alexis, I think we had a question in that's kind of similar. Could you share any tips on how a cisgender person can be more supportive to trans or non-binary people at a sporting club or even at the workplace? So that's a great question. I might come to you first, Alexis, if you have any thoughts, and then if Megan and Jude want to add anything else in.
A cis person can be more supportive of trans and non-binary people. I mean, you're already doing a whole lot if you're treating the people in those communities with the same amount of respect as you give to a cis person. And that sounds like such a cop-out of an answer, but a lot of the interactions as adults is based on a respect level, and not belittle, but not to make a big deal about them being trans or non-binary even, and just kind of like be like, I know that lesbians and gays pretty much have this opinion the entire time for ages as well, that being trans and non-binary is a adjective and not the noun. It is part of what describes you, but it is not exactly what you are completely. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of in response to that question is something that you mentioned earlier, Megan, just regards to pronoun badges. So I think
they help a lot.
Yeah, having pronoun badges, or even just making it more common and more everyday to introduce yourself with your pronouns or ask folks for their pronouns, because in that sense you're not making the assumption on the other person's gender. You're kind of opening it up for someone to share their pronouns, and kind of, because it's always difficult if someone, I just know myself when I'm meeting new people, if someone misgenders me from the off, it's even more difficult for me to kind of correct them the longer the conversation goes on. So I generally try to stick it in pretty early.
I would say that the pronoun badges are better than a circle of people saying their pronouns, because that can seem kind of not combative, but it definitely feels like the person's being put on the spot. And then if they're like, oh no, I can't do this right now, and they want to change later, it's a little bit harder. It's also very weird if you, as a trans person, know in the room that you are the only trans person and everyone's doing their pronouns, and you're like, they're only doing this because I'm here. They wouldn't be doing this otherwise. So
yeah, I could say one or two things about this as well. I think my workplace is, so I work in a really busy retail store, and I have been during the whole pandemic, and I kind of started transitioning while I worked there. So I changed my name while I was there and everything. We're still working on pronouns. It took a while to get the name. We're still working on pronouns. We'll get there. But having those one or two friends in work, or those one or two good people who would kind of let people know that this is... Oh, did we lose someone?
Connor. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I was just like waffling on.
Oh, hello.
There
Sorry.
we go.
Apologies for that. I dropped
It's okay,
off.
we keep the show going.
Thanks.
But yeah, sorry. I was just saying, like, just being that one person who will talk to your other coworkers if there's a wrong name said or the wrong pronoun said, just like very politely correcting people so that your fellow trans coworker doesn't have to do it all the time, because it can get very tiring. There's just some small things that you can do that make the experience a whole lot easier.
Definitely, yeah. Just coming in on the end of that, Jude, but that sounds like it would definitely be something helpful, both in workplaces and also at sporting groups and sporting clubs. And I know Sporting Pride themselves are doing an awful lot of good work, not just with, say, LGBT plus specific sports clubs, but within wider sporting society in Ireland. They're working with the GAA and the likes of Connacht Rugby and other rugby groups. So it's really great to see that.
I'm not sure if this is a me thing or if this is a general society thing, but I know for a fact that for me, it's a lot easier to help someone else when they're misgendered or experiencing homophobia or transphobia than if it was to happen to me. Yeah. It just, I'm a lot quicker to be like, step up for someone else. Therefore, if you just have two people that step up for each other in a workplace, it's a whole lot easier for them to cope with that.
Yeah, definitely. Having the solidarity there, I think, really helps.
100%, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all the questions we kind of got in on the chat there. I don't know if anybody else had anything else. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. So I don't know if folks had anything else they wanted to add in about being active and outdoors and queer and living in Ireland, all of the above.
Just, I think it's good to try new things, and you know there are a lot more LGBT plus inclusive spaces out there these days, and I found the club through Meetup, so it's a really cool app, you know, and you can see there, and it became like one of my main sort of social things to do as well. So, but like, I mean, everyone here has kind of talked about giving it a try, you know, to give something a try, and then, you know, if you don't like it, there's plenty more sports out there, but it's just, it is a great excuse to get out and do something, and meet people, and you can take it as far as you want to take it. You can play socially, or you can take it a bit further and go competitive if you wanted as well. So
yeah. How have you been able to do any training by yourself, Megan, or I suppose
with badminton?
Yeah.
Well, it came to a point, I can't remember which lockdowns it was between, but where you were basically allowed to play doubles if you were from the same household. So we were just grabbing every couple we knew. We were like, come on, let's go play some badminton. But obviously it was just more for fun than as opposed to like training, you know. So kind of dropped that aspect of it. But I wasn't playing super competitively either. Like, you know, I was in a Dublin league and it was quite nice, and would like to go back to that as well, because I am a bit competitive, and I kind of, you know, I like to be parts of competitions and that. But yeah, and just generally though, it's important to, you know, to keep challenging things as well. And like, if you can come in as an ally to trans people as well, I know there's a little bit of conversation around that there, but like, again, don't want to make it negative, but even at that LGBT tournament I was at, there was transphobia, you know, so like we definitely need to keep calling these things out and educating ourselves as a community.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what you were saying about being competitive and stuff, that if you find that you are yourself a competitive person, it's always great to find an outlet for that competitivity. So therefore it's not seeping into your regular social life.
Yeah, I get that. That for me, that's just being outside with my soccer ball and kicking it against a gate or kicking it against a wall and just totally switching off from anything else. Just another question here. If we set up a sporting group welcoming queer people, how best should it be labelled? LGBTQ plus, question mark, gay, inclusive. It's important that we are open but not limiting, I feel. If straights want to join, there should be no issue with that, in my opinion. Gender, sexuality, it shouldn't matter. But it is important that we agree on how to advertise it exactly without offending people. Yeah, I suppose on that, I think for myself, the reason that I feel so comfortable playing with the LGBT plus soccer team is that I know there will be other LGBT plus people there. We do get cis allies and straight allies playing soccer with us. It's open to everyone, but I think having that space identified is really important. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Like, I know it's a kind of a tough one when you're trying to decide, like, what do you label it as, but like, I was the same. I don't know if I would have joined that specific club if I didn't know it was an LGBT plus club. And similarly, we do have allies play with us sometimes. You know, and but it's that people, it's like, how do you explicitly say that it is a space? Like, I mean, you have to say it's an LGBT plus space. I think, I don't know if there is, you know,
It's like there's
another
always
way.
exceptions to the rule.
Yeah. You could say allies welcome if you want, you know, you could say friends, and, you know, because it is quite likely as well, someone might be really scared to go by themselves and they want to bring a friend the first time, and it might be an ally, and, you know, if that helps them to come along for the first time, then it's great.
Definitely,
It also brings up the point that there could literally be somebody who could be questioning their sexuality or their gender, and they're not comfortable identifying under the LGBT umbrella, but they still want to hang out and see what it's like to help them make the decision. So they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm straight. I'm. Can I go to the football?" So,
it often does take people different times, or people have different experiences with it, with kind of coming out to themselves first and then coming out to kind of friends and family, and like joining those like spaces and getting involved in those communities. But I think definitely flagging it and advertising it as a welcoming space is important. I know, Megan, I don't know if the tournament you've done with badminton was part of, say, the gay games, or what's the other one, the Euro one. I think they're kind of international tournaments that are LGBT friendly.
The club was because it was just after I joined, they had come back from the gay games, and I think everybody talked about it for like a year afterwards. So I was like, God, I better go to this, you know. But yeah, really cool opportunities to go and meet other people from other sporting communities as well.
Yeah, and to get the international perspective as well, and talk to people from different countries that might be facing different challenges as well.
Yeah.
So we're just coming up on 9 here. I don't know if anybody had any closing comments. I'd just like to thank again Dublin Pride and Sporting Pride for helping us put the panel together as part of Galway Community Pride. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to Megan, Jude and Alexis for being here and for chatting the really interesting, enjoyable chat this evening. So I hope to see you folks soon. Megan, it might be a while, I'm sure, before we see you, but keep us posted if you're in Galway anytime soon.
I'll be down as soon as I can. I'll book some courts and we can start a club.
Sounds excellent. And then we'll jump for a cycle with Alexis across the canal, and we'll go for a swim with Jude.
And then football.
The whole triathlon.
We've got the ingredients for it there. So thanks very much, folks. Keep an eye out on Galway Community Pride social media. We've got an event coming up at 9 p.m. It's a Broad August Banter. So that's our next event and our last event of Tuesday. And we have events running all across the rest of the week. And you can also check us out on Instagram and Twitter as well. So I'd just like to say good night to everyone, and we'll hopefully see you all soon.
And thank you for hosting, Connor.
Yeah, well done. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.